Naval Headquarters Marineford, Marshal's Mansion. The drizzle outside the window was dim, and everything was silent, as if paying homage to the countless soldiers who died in this war. The current Marine Marshal Kong sits upright on the pile of documents, and the ashtray on the desk in front of him is already full of cigarette butts. The brow furrowed, and the pressure on his shoulders seemed to be inevitable. On his front side, Sengoku Admiral, Crane Staff Officer, and Garp Vice Admiral also wrinkled their brows and constantly processed the military documents in hand. It's really troublesome. Golden Lion made such a fuss, which made the old lady feel bad. Garp stuffed the senbei in his mouth with one hand, and spit out impatiently. Sengoku next to him flipped a Byakugan angrily, and the corners of his mouth twitched. You bastard is not dealing with the documents at all. Okay, just patronizing snacks there. Do you think I can't see you circle around the document? However, Sengoku was already familiar with the character of these two bastards, and didn't bother to say anything to him. He wouldn't change it anyway. 2 days have passed since the Battle of Marineford. Although the war has ended, Marine has also won the final victory. The culprit Golden Lion was killed on the spot, and the accomplice Douglas Bullet was captured by Zephyr and sent to the impelled down prison. After the death of the leader of Golden Lion, the other members of the Flying Pirate Group also lost the courage to continue fighting, and they were arrested one after another. However, the post-war work handling caused all the Marine executives to be overwhelmed. Akainu, Aokiji and Kizaru have been sent out to help and supervise the reconstruction of Marineford's military area. Momosagi and T-Dolphin are resident in civilian areas and are mainly responsible for the reconstruction of the military academy in the comfort of civilian areas. And the few of them here need to deal with the piles of government and military documents in front of them. Statistics of war damage, pensions for the war dead and wounded. Planning and arrangement of reconstruction work. To request funding from the world government. There is also an external announcement. A series of ensuing problems did not completely end with the war. Just when everyone was at a loss, suddenly there were heavy knocks outside the door. Boom boom. Old man Empty, open the door for me. Zephyr's loud voice rang. A smile appeared on Kong's face, and he waved his hand for the guard to open the door. Zephyr, haven't you all gone to the military hospital these days? Why do you have time to come to the old man here? Sora saw Zephyr strode in, got up from his seat, and greeted him with a big smile. In that war, Zephyr has done a great job and once again demonstrated to the whole world the prestige of the Black Arm, Zephyr. One person solved the 3 squad captains of the Flying Pirates, and finally prevented Bullet's runaway in the civilian area, and captured the malignant tumor of the Roger Pirates alive. It can be said unceremoniously, Zephyr stabilized the rear of the naval headquarters by relying on a single person, so that the war on the main battlefield was successfully won. Zephyr laughed. Don't come to see how your old man is. I heard that as soon as the war started, the guy, Lonely Red, Letterfield came to you. Kong shook his head and said, we fought a battle on a desert island nearby, and we finally decided the winner. As he said, he suddenly coughed twice and his face became pale. Zephyr frowned. Are you okay, empty old man? Sora was injured. Sora smiled disapprovingly. It's okay. The insidious guy didn't take advantage of it. It is estimated that he will not be able to trouble us in a short time. Everyone was silent. Lonely Red, this big pirate who is as famous as Roger, is so powerful. How is that kid Roy? At this time, Sengoku put down the file in his hand and asked Zephyr with a smile. Garp also raised his head with a smile. For Roy, Sengoku and Garp, who witnessed the scene on the main battlefield, both appreciated and agreed with him. Zephyr laughed. It's okay, that stinky boy has a hard life. I guess I will be alive and kicking again after a few days of recovery. When everyone heard the words, joy appeared on their faces. Nodding empty. That's good, the old man also read the report. Zephyr, you didn't choose the wrong person. His deep eyes shone with light. Roy is indeed a rare talent. Let him recover from his injury. After he is well injured, he should have a lot of rewards. Empty directly to make a decision. Kong has never been stingy with outstanding juniors. Moreover, Roy's performance in the war is that outstanding that can be described. The captain of the Flying Pirate Group, Golden Lion, was killed under the eyes of the public. This amazing contribution cannot be overstated. Zephyr laughed and said, then since old man Kong you have spoken like this, then I won't go around in circles. He is straight to the point. I'm here this time to ask Roy and you for a devil fruit. I don't accept rejection. Before Sora spoke, Zephyr gritted his teeth and waved his hand heavily. He is also the old man's personal disciple, and the glory of that battle is also here. Sakazuki and the three of them should have the same treatment. Roy must have it too. Sakazuki and the three of them have it, and Roy must have it too. Zephyr's words were low and decisive, with an unquestionable tone. The moment the voice fell, the smile on Marshal Kong's face froze, his eyelids twitched, and his half-raised hands were frozen in the air. Zephyr's request is not unreasonable. Based on Roy's performance in the war and his status as the highest training level in the military academy, it is not excessive to reward him with a powerful devil fruit. But the key question is, such precious and powerful devil fruits as lava fruit, frozen fruit and sparkling fruit, even the naval headquarters can't come out. But Zephyr's tone and expression made it clear that he was reluctant, broken and smashed, and Kong was immediately adjusted to the stage. Sengoku saw this scene and immediately stood up from the sofa, smiled and patted Zephyr on the shoulder and said, "Well, Zephyr, we all understand that Ishin wants to cultivate Roy, but the powerful devil fruit is a treasure wherever it is so easy to get it. And the most important thing about this is, have you asked Roy's opinion on this matter?" Zephyr was taken aback when he heard the words, but stubbornly shook his head and said, "The old man doesn't care if he wants it or not, anyway, the old man has to give him a whole devil fruit today. In any case, that kid is qualified to have it. As for whether he wants to use it for himself in the end, let him decide for himself. The old people are like this, especially for the younger generations who value and look forward to them. They all have a mentality that doesn't care about the latter's need, likes or not, anyway, just give him such a mentality. Empty old man, don't tell me nonsense that you don't have such a big naval headquarters. I don't believe you haven't secretly hidden any good things." Zephyr stiffened his neck and stared. Sengoku and Sora suddenly smiled bitterly. Garp on the side was watching the excitement with relish, eating crispy senbei in his mouth. "That. Zephyr," Kong suddenly sighed, helplessly said. "Since your Ishin wants to do this, the old man has nothing to do. You wait a minute." Saying that, he waved his hand and asked the messenger to come over and give him a few words. Zephyr nodded in satisfaction, a smile at the corner of his mouth. After a while, the messenger came in panting, carrying a few wooden boxes. "Report Marshal Sora, what you want has been brought. There are 3 boxes in total." Kong nodded, raised his hand to let the messenger go out, then turned to Zephyr and said, "Naval headquarters are all here. You pick it yourself, and take away whichever you pick." He cursed at Zephyr angrily. Zephyr grinned and opened a small box on the left first. A purple-black banana came into view. Zephyr frowned. Sengoku on the side took the initiative to explain. "Zone devil fruit, ancient species, Tyrannosaurus form. The ancient demon fruit power can be transformed into an ancient animal, and its rarity is definitely no less than that of Logia. This ancient species in the form of Tyrannosaurus, capable people can obtain extremely terrifying increase in strength, defense and recovery ability after transforming, which is very suitable for Roy's physical skills to break through the limits of the body." Zephyr nodded secretly, couldn't help but glance at Kong, thinking that this old man still hides a lot of good things. Somersaulted Byakugan with a snort, blood was already dripping in his heart. "That's it, it's good," he urged. Zephyr waved his hand. "Old man Kong, what are you anxious about? You haven't finished your pick yet." "I'm so impatient when I'm old." Sora suddenly blew his beard and stared. "Isn't your uncle Zephyr lousy over 50? Zephyr reached out and opened the second box. It was a green devil fruit resembling an apple shape. "What about this?" Zephyr looked up at Sengoku. He has seen the devil fruit illustrated book and can recognize most of the devil fruits that have appeared on this sea. Sengoku touched his goatee, distinguished it carefully, and slowly said, "The Paramecia hot fruit can give the capable person the ability to heat the body to a certain extent, which can heat up the things that come into contact with oneself and burn or cook the enemy. If this devil fruit is developed properly, it is extremely powerful." Zephyr's eyes suddenly lit up. "Not bad." After speaking, he opened the third box under Kongru's painful eyes. It is a blue and white pineapple. Sengoku didn't need Zephyr's gaze to hint at this time, he just glanced at it and introduced it directly. Logia snow fruit. After use, the body's physique is elementalized, which can turn any part of the body into snow, and has a certain degree of environmental impact. Looking at the 3 valuable devil fruits in front of him, Zephyr fell silent for a moment. Kong said slowly at this time, "Have you chosen? They are all very good devil fruit, you can pick anyone you like." Suddenly, Zephyr jumped up abruptly, spitting and cursing at Kong. "Old man empty, your uncle is not authentic. What are these things? A little reptile devil fruit, and 2 devil fruits that were restrained by the abilities of Sakazuki and Kuzan. How to choose this? Nothing. Sora was immediately stunned. Not just him. The 3 of Sengoku, Garp, and Crane were also staring at Zephyr, who was suddenly cursing and grinning. They were dumbfounded. Don't play stupid with me, Zephyr angrily said. Zone ancient Tyrannosaurus form, isn't this a stupid big one? Physique increase, skin strengthening, and strength enhancement are not too strong at all. As long as the human body is strengthened through reasonable training, let alone Roy will practice hockey in the future. In the battle, the body size becomes larger, but it will cause the speed to drop, and it will become a living target on a large-scale battlefield. He pointed to the other 2 devil fruits, his eyes almost bursting into flames. As for the other 2, they look good. Although hot fruits can raise their own temperature, they are actually not worse than Sakazuki's lava fruit. As for the snow fruit, are you embarrassed to take it out? Isn't this the lower level ability of Kuzan frozen fruit? I shaved my face to speak. Did you fool me like that, old man empty? Zephyr's face turned blue with anger, and he was about to rush towards Sora, looking reckless. Sengoku and Garp hurriedly ran over. One of them held him by one arm and held him tightly, shouting profusely. No, no. Zephyr, don't be impulsive, that's Marshal Kong. Don't do it, you can calm down and talk slowly if you have anything. Sora is also a wry smile. Zephyr, the old man can't do anything about it. There are only these good devil fruits left in this department. You can't look down on other ordinary people. Zephyr glared at him. Sakazuki and the 3 of them picked the rest, right? Sora showed a bitter expression, but did not dare to speak. Zephyr, this bastard, doesn't give any face to anyone when he is reckless. But I did not do this kindly enough. But when I think about it, he also wants to complain. He really has no other inventory. The powerful devil fruit can be counted with one hand. No matter how great naval headquarters is, it is impossible to keep all the powerful devil fruit on this sea in your hands, right? If it could, there would be nothing pirates in this sea. Seeing Zephyr's angry look with beard and staring, he suddenly sighed. This old boy also paid a lot for Marine. And Roy is indeed eligible to get a devil fruit that is as powerful as Akainu and the 3 of them. He pondered for a while and said, otherwise, Zephyr. I took note of this. Before, the old man searched if there was any other way to find a stronger devil fruit. Just continue to fool you. Zephyr broke the jar and said. Garp, Sengoku, let me go quickly. I will lie here today and will not leave. I will tear down this marshal's mansion. He danced his fist vigorously as he said. Sora rubbed his forehead helplessly. The old man is serious. If it doesn't work, the old man will ask 5 elders personally. Is this all right? Zephyr's movements stagnated and raised his eyebrows. The anger on his face disappeared in the blink of an eye, and he laughed and said. Old man Kong, you said this yourself, I didn't force you. Sengoku and Garp stared at the side for a while, and subconsciously let go of Zephyr's hand. This bastard's ability to change his face is so strong. The corner of his empty mouth twitched, his head was covered with black lines, and he waved his hand and cursed. Okay, it's okay, I'm still getting angry when I get older. Hurry up and get ready for the big funeral. The effort after the war can't be delayed. Zephyr smiled and raised his hand to salute, guaranteed to complete the task. After speaking, he rolled his eyes and picked up the 3 boxes on the ground with one hand, and hurried away. Now Zikong and the other 3 people were completely stunned. Sora reacted immediately, and roared with fire-breathing eyes. Zephyr, you bastard. The old man promised you. You keep these 3 devil fruits for lousy. This is not your thing. Zephyr's figure was already running far in the blink of an eye, and he even used shaved and moonwalk while carrying 3 boxes. A few flashes turned into a tiny black spot on the distant ground. He came from afar with a voice of laughter. Ha 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 ha. Old man empty, don't be so stingy. Anyway, these gadgets are also kept. It is better to leave them to the old man to deal with them personally. There are many students in the military academy who are worth training. Hearing this voice, Sora almost hated to crush his teeth, as if a heart was dripping blood. Although those devil fruits are far inferior to the abilities of Akainu and the 3 of them, they are also extremely precious and powerful devil fruits. Zephyr's trouble, but completely hollowed out his own bottom. He turned around angrily. But I saw an old face licking and laughing in front of my eyes, only 1 centimeter away. Well, old man, Zephyr has it, do I have to have it too? You can't be partial. Sora looked at Garp's wicked face, couldn't hold back anymore, and threw a punch. Boom. Roll. The snow fell extremely suddenly. There was still a bright blue sky before, but within half an hour, the world outside the window was like a whitewashed cake, covered with a thick layer of hoarfrost. The surroundings are very quiet, everything is silent. In the military ward, Roy slowly took off the drip from his hand, tearing the bandage off his body with difficulty. Bloody bandage, one by one, extremely slowly. It was torn apart by Roy with that trembling hand. As if because of the intense pain, his body was trembling slightly. In 5 minutes, white bandages with blood scattered all over the place. And Roy's hospital gown was already wet with cold sweat. Although the wound has started to scab in a hurry, the skin and flesh that are sometimes lifted up because the blood coagulates and sticks to the bandage is still an unbearable pain for ordinary people. After doing all this, Roy panted heavily, and stood by the bed for a long time before leaning on the bed frame. The floor is cold, he felt his body heavier than ever before, and his feet seemed to be covered. It's too reluctant. Roy suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly, and murmured softly. He picked up a coat casually, and walked slowly to the window like a dying old man. Iron gray horizon, the feather-like snow whirled between the sky and the earth. It almost made him unable to see Marineford outside. The flying snow in the sky seemed to obscure the sound, and the whole world seemed to slow down to an unnatural degree. But looking at this quiet picture of snow in the sky outside the window, Roy's mouth slowly twitched, and the face that was no longer immature was full of happiness and satisfaction. After all, the war is over. This is the Marineford in his memory. In front is the civilian area and military academy to be rebuilt. The ground is full of various building materials. A group of figures were carrying materials in the heavy snow, with smiles on their faces, trying hard to rebuild their homes. Farther away, there are many children in the civilian area playing in the snow, making snowmen with small shovel in their hands, chasing each other, falling and climbing, and the play is full of laughter. He can see farther, the marshal's mansion far away. Towering military fortresses, like a white behemoth of war. Overlooking the entire island, guarding them should guard everything, giving people an unprecedented sense of security. Roy stared blankly for a moment. He has never observed this place where he used to live so leisurely and quietly. Busy day and night, he is diligent in self-discipline. There are always pedestrians hurriedly walking on this piece of soil. His identity as a traverser, it also made him have a passing mentality in his heart. But now, this moment, he suddenly realized that. It turns out that even in such a military powerhouse, the breath of life, the cooking smoke of every household, children's slapstick and laughter, it was so soothing. He suddenly realized that he was so lucky that he was a part of this place. He was also extremely fortunate that he had no regrets in that war. The beauty in front of him is worthy of him. It's beautiful, isn't it? I don't know when a tall figure appeared in the room, and a cool and soft voice slowly sounded behind him. Roy nodded, and smiled in a daze. Yes, Momoshiki Vice Admiral. Momoshiki, who was standing behind Roy, heard this name and bit her red lip subconsciously. She just wanted to speak, but when he saw the new scars on Roy that the coat couldn't cover, he couldn't say a word. There was a long silence. Roy turned around, looked at the beauty in front of her and smiled. Momoshiki Vice Admiral. Why are you here? Momoshiki Kaido. What's wrong? As a senior, can't you come to visit the injured junior brother? Her beautiful eyes squeezed tightly. Now you are the hero of Marineford, the man in Marine. I don't know how many people want to cheat you. She raised her slender white hand, pointed to the corner of the ward, and joked. If it weren't for Teacher Zephyr's repeated orders to prohibit visits and affect your physical recovery, it is estimated that your ward is now full of people. Roy was taken aback, subconsciously looked towards the corner Momoshiki was pointing, and then suddenly couldn't laugh or cry. Fruit baskets one by one, piles of nutrients. There are also various cards full of blessings. Piled up all over the floor, it's like a garbage dump. He touched his nose and smiled disapprovingly. I am such a weak kid, what a marine hero. Momoshiki is meaningful and authentic. Hero, it has nothing to do with strength or weakness. She took a closer look at Roy, and suddenly smiled. Cultivate yourself, you will be busy later. After speaking, he turned around. But just as she was about to step out of the room, her footsteps paused. It sounded calm and cold, with an imperceptible tremor. Don't be so impulsive next time, I see. And also, don't call me Momoshiki Vice Admiral anymore. What do you call you then? Just call my name. Gion. After talking about Momoshagi, he slipped away. Those small steps are so fast that it is almost useless to shave. Roy looked at her back, which disappeared quickly after a few flashes, with a slight astonishment, feeling a little confused in her heart. Don't you just call it your name? Why are you running so fast? He shook his head, looked out the window again, and quietly stared at the snow-filled world outside. What he didn't know was, in the military, only a very small number of close relationships or elders can directly call Momosagi's name. This was the recognition that Cake, a genius in the same class as Momosagi, reluctantly received after being defeated many times by Momosagi. And Roy, a junior of military academy, can make Momosagi let him call his name directly. The meaning behind this is no longer as simple as strength. It's just that none of this has much to do with Roy, a straight steel man who is single. But not long after Momosagi left, Roy was stunned to see the old man Zephyr rushing and carrying a few large boxes. What are you going to do, old man? He asked puzzledly, but the monk of Zhong couldn't figure it out. Zephyr threw a few large boxes on his shoulders to the ground with a bang, poured himself a cup of hot water, and gurgled his head up and drank it in one gulp. Roy squatted down and looked at the tumbling box on the ground. This action seemed to affect the wound a bit, making him grin a little with pain. Zephyr finished drinking the water, took a breath, patted the snow on his body and hair, poured another cup of hot water for Roy, and said casually, "This is your reward. It's not a good thing, it's 3 devil fruits." Roy, who took the hot water from Zephyr and took half a sip, squirted out the water in his mouth with a pop when he heard Zephyr's words. He stared at the indifferent Zephyr in front of him and suddenly said, "Old man, don't you go robbing 3 devil fruits. Even if naval headquarters is rich and powerful, it is not so easy to get out of 3 devil fruits at once." Zephyr slapped Roy on the head, staring angrily. "What are you talking about, brat? This old man is coming back from the empty old man. You are now a direct disciple of the old man. You must have what Sakazuki and the others have." He suddenly fell silent, turning his face away from Roy, his voice faintly sounded. "You can't fight with your life every time you fight." Roy was taken aback, his heart warmed, and a soft smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Zephyr, the old man, on the surface Tenten was violating himself, and he wanted to torture him to death when he was training, but he was really good to him. Looking at the 3 boxes in front of you, Roy, the old man, you look down and go to the Marshal Kong to speak. It must not be easy, right? Roy shook his head. "Teacher Zephyr, you can take these 3 devil fruits back." "What are you talking about?" Zephyr suddenly turned his head and scolded in anger, looking like he hates iron for steel. "Don't rectify those who don't have to be polite to the old man. Give it to the old man. What the old man gave out has never been recovered. Don't you give me face." His nostrils were in the sky, he looked like he was a thief, and he raised his casserole big fist as he spoke. Roy smiled helplessly. Zephyr opened all 3 boxes with one hand at this time. A total of 3 devil fruit, Zone ancient Tyrannosaurus form, Logia snow fruit, Paramecia hot fruit. Although they are all unfamiliar devil fruits, they don't match your abilities. But Old Man Kong has made a final decision. He will try his best to help you find a fruit that is no less than Sakazuki in the 3 of them. Even if you can't find it, he will go to Marie Joy's and ask 5 elders to ask for it. Speaking of Zephyr, he picked up all the 3 devil fruits and stuffed them into Roy's hands. "Don't talk so much nonsense, boy. Take it to the old man. In the future, even if you don't use these things yourself, you can still use them for others. It's okay to fight and kill outside the army, but there are too many people in the army." As he said, Zephyr suddenly got down, leaned in Roy's ear and lowered his voice. "It won't be long before the old man will retreat. Sengoku will take his class, and the old man, Admiral's virtual title, will also be released. At that time, Admiral will have 3 positions available. Although you are not qualified to be in one of the 3 positions, it is okay to prepare in advance. It is really not possible that the old man will get you an Admiral candidate at that time. These 3 devil fruits, the old man is for you to build your own team. Your time in the army is still short. Although you have accumulated a lot of fame and prestige in the war, there are not many people who truly support you in the army. You can." Zephyr kept talking like this, wishing to teach Roy all the humanities in the army. Roy squatted on the ground and listened silently, his eyes getting wet and big unknowingly. "You bring these dumplings and zongzi. They are all made at home. They are not so delicious outside. Don't bring me mother. Where is this thing to sell outside? How heavy is it to take it back to school? I have to carry it back to the dormitory. Okay. Then, after you go back to school, don't play with your mobile phone all day long, go out for more exercise, and have a good class. Okay. Okay. Don't worry, I'm not a kid anymore. Then you are careful on the road, remember not to ride in the car. It's all right, are you annoying? The picture in my mind rolled, it was a scene on the side of the street at dusk. What a similar picture. Roy was dazed to think. It's been a long time since I heard the two trembling old people in the house chattering in their ears. I don't know how they are now. Did my departure completely break their hearts? Listening to Zephyr's whispering words in his ear, Roy's eyes trembled, gritted his teeth. He didn't understand in the past, but now. He has experienced too much, life and death. Hard work, wandering away alone. It made him miss the verbose words of his parents on Earth. The eye sockets gradually became red. He was also a rebellious teenager. I don't care about my parents' instructions, even feel bored. But now, he really wanted to hear their nagging again. Even one sentence is fine. Smelly boy, have you listened to it? Zephyr saw Roy lowered his head without saying a word, looked dazed, and slammed his head angrily. But when he was just about to start, he was suddenly stunned. Because he saw Roy's red eyes. What's the matter with you, brat, is there too much pressure? Actually, it's okay. You can do it if you don't want to. You follow the path you like. The old man will not force you. Zephyr was careful and authentic. Roy raised his head and smiled, wiped the corners of his eyes with a hand, shook his head and said, "It's okay, old man, what you said makes sense. I'm fine, I just feel a little homesick." Zephyr was taken aback, then smiled suddenly, patted Roy on the shoulder and said, "When you get better, the old man approves you for a few days off and asks you to go back to East Blue." Roy smiled, but said nothing. East Blue, this strange place is not his home. Zephyr saw Roy's depressed mood, and was silent, thinking that Roy was still immersed in the gloom of that war. He thought for a while, and comforted him softly. War is always cruel, and you don't need to think too much. You have done it perfectly. Without you, countless people would die in that war. Well, you take a good rest first, and the old man will leave these things for you. You can handle it as you like. Tomorrow is a very important day, take care of yourself, then someone will pick you up. Zephyr said with emotion in his eyes, and then stood up slowly. Tomorrow? Roy tried to suppress his inner emotions and asked. Zephyr nodded, his eyelids sinking slightly, and his tone of voice added a gloomy tone. Tomorrow is the day of the funeral of all the soldiers who died in the Marineford Defense War. Roy was stunned. The next day. The wind stopped, but heavy snow like feathers still shrouded the world outside the window. Lying on the hospital bed, Roy slowly opened his eyes, feeling the itching sensation from all over his body, making him uncomfortable. The wound is crusting and healing, but it feels uncomfortable. The sixth gate of the 8 inner gates is really strong. Roy clenched his fist subconsciously, feeling the weak fist, and involuntarily laughed at himself. With the help of the system, in that battle, he successfully liberated the sixth gate, Jingmun, of the 8 inner gates, and displayed the peacock to kill the golden lion. The invincible and devastating heaven-defying combat power at the beginning, even after a few days, still left a deep impression on Roy's heart. But he was very clear in his heart, this is not his own power. That comes from the power of the system. With his current physical condition and training situation, even if his injuries are healed, it is at best the extent of the liberation of the fifth gate, Doman. But he believed that it doesn't take long. I can rely on my own strength to open that door again. At that time, he will fear no one. However, why didn't the system make any noise during this period of time? It stands to reason that I have 3 devil fruits here, this guy should be able to spit out. Roy touched his head suspiciously, and yelled silently in his heart. System? Then, he was stunned suddenly. A face became extremely pale, there was violent trembling visible to the naked eye all over his body. On the system interface deep in my mind, a row of blue boys flickered faintly like candlelight. The system has fallen asleep because of excessive energy consumption. The system is in deep sleep? Roy staggered, almost unable to stand still, gasping for breath. There was no systematic voice coming out, and the whole world in front of him seemed to be like this empty hospital room. Everything was still, and even the plants in the corner of the room seemed to be condensed. My heart was empty, as if I had lost some of the most important things. He stubbornly propped up on the edge of the bed and sat there. Sit for a long time. The system, even though it was an extremely unbeatable existence to him, had made Roy irritated countless times in the past. But it suddenly disappeared, but inexplicably, a deep sense of loneliness appeared in Roy's heart. It traveled through this world with itself, to some extent. Although Roy won't admit it personally, but this product was unknowingly has already become his friend, the closest and closest friend. But now, the corners of Roy's mouth showed an extremely bitter sourness. He couldn't help but remember the words of the system in the battle that day. From this moment to the moment when your life ends, the direction of your will is the ultimate goal of this system. Any choice you make, the system will unreservedly assist and support. Next, please receive your reward. To your heart's content, without regret, to sway your youth. Roy gritted his teeth tightly. So, in that battle, not only I was working hard, but you were working hard, right? He murmured hoarsely. Tuck tuck tuck. At this time, suddenly there was a slow knock on the door of the ward. Roy? In the ward, Roy took a deep breath, tried to suppress the emotions in his heart, and responded. I'm here, come in. The door of the ward was pushed open, and Hina's shadow appeared outside the door. She wore a black dress, making her long pink hair and snow-white skin beautifully set off. Her hair was simply tied up, and her hands were wearing black silk gloves. Simple, but without losing the sense of beauty. Hina's face is not very good, as if it is because of today. Today, it's a funeral. After Hina came in, she looked surprised when Roy was still wearing a medical gown in front of her. With her knowledge of Roy, he should have changed clothes long ago. But now, she looked at Roy carefully, saw the bloodshot eyes around the latter's pupils, and her heart trembled. As if to realize something, she didn't speak, just walked slowly to the closet in the corner, took out a brand new black suit, and came to Roy. It's okay, let me do it myself, classmate Hina. Roy barely squeezed a smile on his face. Hina was taken aback, nodded immediately, walked out of the room, and gently closed the door. In the ward, Roy washed his face, took off his hospital gown, and changed into the fitted suit. Black, solemn, the tall and straight figure looked very capable, and the pale face had an indescribable charm. Outside the window, gradually sounded long and sad horns. The sound of the horn gradually became low and magnificent, as if speaking in a wordlessly desolate in the snow in the sky. Roy tightened his black tie. The action naturally folded the quilt of the hospital bed squarely. Shop the hospital gowns neatly, clean up the bandages and rubbish on the ground. But when he finished all this, he was slightly startled. There was a smile on his face. The system is gone. But he went to clean up his room as always. Asshole, your change to me is not just a little bit. You will definitely be back, right? Roy's eyes were red, and he murmured with a smile. Some habits will not change because of the departure of certain people or things. Snow, floating and scattered on the ground. It is covered in silver, and it is gray and white everywhere. Roy, wearing a black trench coat, slowly opened the door. Then, froze. There is an open space in front of the military hospital, which is very empty. But now the clearing is full of people. Each of them was wearing a flowing black suit and overcoat, standing tall and awe-inspiring in the snow with different heights. Ice and snow, they were like a black killing javelin, motionless, covered with snow. The expression was solemn, dark, as if even the cold air oozes killing intent. But when Roy stepped out of the military gate, this group of rock-like people, they all raised their hands suddenly. A grand military salute to the young man. Hundreds of hands waved, shocking the snow all over the sky. Welcome back to the team. They burst into a burst of passionate and fanatical roar. Roy was taken aback. Hina, who is wearing an elegant black dress next to him, has already taken his arm. Everyone is waiting for you. Looking at those familiar young faces, Roy's face slowly burst into a smile. He also raised his hand to salute. Go ahead, everyone has been waiting. We go and send one of our comrades in arms. Snow crashed underground. The sky and the earth are gray. Naval Headquarters Marineford, Cemetery. The pitch-black crowd broke through the wind and snow, and marched quickly on the road to the cemetery like a long slaying dragon. The cemetery has long been densely packed with Marines. A group of Marine high-level officials, headed by Marine Marshal Kong, stood silent in front of a uniform black square. Roy's young face quickly attracted everyone's attention. He came. It's Roy. Is he the cadet who killed Golden Lion? Really young. Don't look at him as young. You were not on the main battlefield at the time, and you never saw Roy killing decisively. It made us all excited. Yeah. I can't help but remember when I followed Zephyr Admiral to fight the New World. Although he is only a military school student, he is indeed our Marine hero. Yes, he is our hero. Among the Marine soldiers present, the vast majority are elites from the headquarters, and many of them are elite soldiers who have survived on the main battlefield. It is no exaggeration to say that they are soldiers of 100 battles. But at this moment, seeing Roy, who stepped into the cemetery with heavy steps, and the military academy students who followed him closely behind him, there was a sense of subconscious obedience in his heart. This kind of heavy and resolute aura. Each of them knew in their hearts that this cadet who had saved the war situation in one hand had undergone a completely reborn transformation. The world gradually became quiet and gloomy, in the flying snow. The mighty Marine phalanx didn't need anyone's order, and everyone couldn't help but make way for the boy. They looked at the teenager with awe and admiration in their eyes, and even a faint enthusiasm. This pomp is really amazing. His grandma, I didn't expect Lousy to be so prestigious in this life. I'm so handsome. Behind Roy, ghost spiders, moles and Hu Shaoshan all laughed excitedly in their hearts. Their cadets are not regular soldiers, and they have not played a big role on the battlefield. But now, everyone in the entire naval headquarters is giving way for them. This posture, this pomp, no one believes it, but they all knew it well. The glory and splendor of all this, it was the man in front of them who staggered but resolutely stepped back with his life. A group of people passed through the military phalanx and came to the front of the crowd. Roy waved his hand and broke free of Haine's support, and raised his hand to salute the highest decision-making level of Marine lined up in front of him. Well, the time is just right, the injury has almost recovered, right? Kong asked with a smile. Roy nodded and responded. Thank Marshal Kong for your concern, everything is fine. Nodded without saying anything, just waved for the privates to bring Roy and his party into the army. He is not in a good mood today, especially in such an environment and atmosphere, it is not appropriate to say too much. Roy entered, but was arranged at the forefront. Not far in front of him, it is a large piece of newly built tomb. It is densely packed, and it seems to spread all the way to the end of the extreme eyes from the front, which is shocking to see. In front of each tomb, there are tombstones. A small bunch of yellow daisies were placed in front of the tombstone, and a certain snow-white military cap hung on the tombstone. The solemn and depressive atmosphere permeated the graveyard in front of me. Roy couldn't help but squinted. I don't know it's because of the wind and snow. Or for other reasons, he actually felt a little sour in his nose. In my mind, the bloody scene in the military academy that day appeared again. He took a deep breath, and the cold air ran across his trachea, making his face paler. Let's start. Marshal Kong said loudly at this time. As he spoke, bursts of deep, heroic music rose slowly. Everyone involuntarily lowered their heads, choked, and hummed to the comrades in front of them who were supposed to be standing next to them, but were finally buried in this desolate place. The sea is watching, the beginning of this world. The sea also knows the end of this world, so the direction it induces is the way forward. So it is the right world to guide it. Pain and suffering are all tolerated for me. Broad, gentle, tolerant for me. The sea is watching, the beginning of this world. The sea also knows the end of this world. The voice became more and more magnificent and magnificent. Someone cried bitterly, some people wept sadly. Some people have red eyes, someone is impassioned. The singing became louder and more enthusiastic. In the end, like a swordsman in a cavalry, he boldly burst out, resolute and clear. In case I disappear from this world, the omniscient sea will also guide. I won't be afraid, because I have you. Not timid, my friends are also waiting. Roy clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He has heard this song before, in the plot, when Zephyr died in battle, this song was played. The title of the song is Guide to the Sea. It is the only song in the world of pirates that praises the dead Marine. He can't sing, just listens quietly. But that quiet tone, inexplicably, had a kind of exciting power, as if it made his soul resonate. The belief that he would die generously for justice, that wanton blood, poured out from the deepest part of his heart, as if to ignite and explode his whole person. In front of me, there are countless tombstones. Behind them are thousands of comrades in arms. They sang together, for their most cherished comrades in arms. Send for the last ride. Actually, I hate this song. Suddenly, a low and unfamiliar voice sounded nearby. Roy was taken aback for a moment, then turned his head away. Aokiji's face that seemed to have a lazy expression forever came into view. Because every time this song is played, it means that someone is dying. Roy was silent, slowly lowering his eyelids, suppressing the throbbing in his heart. Aokiji didn't pay any attention, and just said to himself. His indifferent eyes seemed to flicker in the depths, but it was difficult to catch. The parting whine, obviously I haven't drunk enough. But in a blink of an eye, the familiar person has no chance to meet again. I used to, like everyone else, hummed this song in this cemetery, but in the end, I hated it more and more. Old men often say that there is still a chance to be a comrade in arms in the next life, but this sounds really unconvincing. Things that are not well protected in this life, why can they be protected in the next life? At this point, Aokiji's mouth showed a self-deprecating smile. Roy listened in silence, lowered his head and suddenly asked such a sentence. Kuzan Vice Admiral, so have you lost an important comrade in arms? Aokiji was stunned, and fell into a bottomless silence. He did not affirm or deny, but this silence explains everything. Roy sighed in his heart. Perhaps this Aokiji, from the original passionate young man, became the one who never sleeps now. Is it also because he has experienced a lot of things? He used to be a young man who was loyal to justice and was about to follow Garp and Zephyr. You will understand later. Be stronger, so that you can protect everything you want to protect. Otherwise, you will live in regret and guilt all your life. After a moment of silence, Aokiji dropped such a meaningful sentence and slowly turned and left. Roy can hear it, he always feels that there is an inexplicable deep meaning behind Aokiji's voice. But when he came back to his senses, the singing was over. Roy paused and sighed silently in his heart. Actually, I understand now. He secretly said. He didn't understand before. As a student living in an ordinary age, he would never know. It turned out to be on the border of the motherland. In the most sinister and miserable desperate situations. There are such a group of unknown people quietly guarding their peace. Certainly, that group of people don't need him to understand. They just need him to comfortably enjoy the peace and ease he deserves. But now, Roy understands everything. If you are not a soldier, you will never know what it is like to be a soldier. But when he became a soldier forever. That hot heart will always belong to that hot land. Finally became, the corpses buried at this foot. The solitary graves stacked in this small cemetery. The old photos placed in the barracks. What is the picture? To be honest, nothing good to picture. The world has become quiet again. The funeral is over. There was no need for the commander's orders, everyone left in an orderly manner, silently, and cautiously. As if for fear of disturbing the rest of countless heroic souls here. No bugle, without military uniforms, without the seagull flag. There is no square quilt, but those who survived suddenly became stronger. Not strong in strength, it's about mentality and will. Because they still have memories, with the fond memories of fighting side by side and living together with comrades in arms, marching towards a farther journey. Roy? Hina and the other military academies surrounded Roy, but Roy waved his hands and said, I want to stay quiet. The others were stunned and didn't say much, but slowly stood far away and waited silently. Roy quietly looked at the graves in front of him and stepped subconsciously. The depressed, gloomy breath made him seem unable to breathe. He walked in the cemetery with a pale face, as if aimlessly. In the distance, everyone at Hina looked worriedly at his extremely bleak back, and stopped talking. Until a certain moment, Roy stopped suddenly. In front of him, it is a brand new tomb. On the tombstone hung a blood-stained uniform with the Vice Admiral rank logo, and a broken saber hung beside it. Roy clenched his fists, the corners of his eyes moistened again. This is the grave of Vice Admiral. He slowly moved his gaze to the tombstone, where a line of words was written on it. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Tortum, died in the Battle of Glory at the Marineford Defense. See Circle Calendar 1472-522. See Circle Calendar 1502-921. Roy's eyes suddenly trembled. Turns out his name is Tortum. Turns out he was only 30 years old. Roy couldn't help cracking his teeth. You are Marine's future, you can't die here. He said so. At the age of 30, it was supposed to be a time of prosperity, but now it has become a broken knife, a blood cloak, and a tombstone. It's not glorious. Roy suddenly roared, his eyes flushed, and his fist slammed heavily on the tombstone, leaving a clear blood mark on it. Yes, died in battle, what the glory of a soldier. Shit. Surviving is the perfect ending, isn't it? At this time, an immature voice sounded from behind. Big brother, are you here to visit Dad? Moment. Roy seemed to be struck by lightning. He turned around stiffly. His face was as pale as a dead man. One tall and one short. One old and one young, two figures, holding hands, appeared before his eyes in the wind and snow. In the wind and snow, the two figures, one old and one young, seemed to be half of their body buried in white. The old man's figure chuckled slightly, not much taller than the little girl next to him. The traces of the years were ruthlessly written all over his face. It was as if because of a bad sleep, bloodshot eyes were oozing in the drooping old eyes. The little girl is very energetic, even in this wind and snow. With a flushed face, looking at Roy with eyes wide open. The red hand was holding a small daisy. Roy froze, unable to say a word. The eye sockets became more and more red, and he gritted his teeth, his body trembling. Tears, the corners of the eyes slipped uncontrollably. No need to guess, this is the family of the Vice Admiral man. Big brother, are you okay? The little girl said anxiously, stood up on her heels cautiously, and wiped the tears from the corner of Roy's eyes with her hand. Grandpa said that only unbehaved children would cry. Are you a bad boy? The moment the voice fell, Roy suddenly couldn't stretch himself. He knelt on the ground with a bang, bent down deeply towards the old and young, and choked with sobs. Sorry, sorry, sorry. He just chanted these words over and over again, and his voice was extremely weak in the blizzard. The little girl froze her face, didn't know what to do, and looked at her grandfather subconsciously. Grandpa said that his father is no longer there, and he will depend on himself in the future. She doesn't understand, but he nodded very well. The old man quietly looked at the boy Marine who was kneeling on the ground in front of him and apologized, and suddenly smiled. The muddy eyes were full of tears, full of wrinkles in the old man Madara's face, but gradually smiled like a flower. It's worth it. He said so. Roy was taken aback, and raised his head incredulously. Old people, young people, little girls. The three of them sat quietly in front of the tomb. Behind is the shocking goose feather snow. Roy, it's okay, you don't need to feel guilty. That is my kid's choice. He is completing his task. As a soldier, you have to have the consciousness to die on the battlefield. Since you have embarked on this road, you can finally be buried in this cemetery. It should have been a lucky thing. I don't know how many Marines there are. They didn't even leave their bodies. They sank into the deserted sea somewhere. The old man babbled authentically, holding a pot of spirits while pouring it one mouthful after another. Roy was silent. There is still a silence that is difficult to speak. Just bowed his head and sat quietly on the snow, holding the little girl's hand tightly. The little girl was surprisingly well behaved and didn't think it was cold on the ground. After sitting down, she fiddled with the little daisy she brought. What about my kid? I can't do anything big in this life. The old man was still talking, and a strong alcohol scent radiated from his words. Even if it is this Marine Vice Admiral, it is because Grandpa told Grandma to reluctantly fill the gap in the position, and the strength is not very good, otherwise it will not be sent to support the military academy in the war. But now, he has done a beautiful thing. The old man patted Roy on the shoulder. Cheer up. He laughed and pointed to the tombstone in front of him. He wants you to live well. Roy sucked his nose hard, as if he had a cold, but couldn't deceive himself at all. The old man laughed more wanton, wine in hand. Drink a sip, then he poured a bite on the tombstone in front of him. It's worth it. Ha ha ha. The old man's son saved Marine's hero. It's worth it. FKY boy, finally did a glorious thing. The old man seemed to be drunk. The old hand patted the cold tombstone vigorously, his eyes proud, as if he was patting his own son's head. Roy sighed deeply in his heart, squeezing his fists tightly, his finger bones turning blue. Gradually, the chatter of the old man next to him stopped. I don't know if it is drunk or drunk. Grandpa's drunk again. Big brother, I will take Grandpa home first. You should also go home quickly, otherwise your parents will be worried. At this time, the little girl smiled and said to Roy. Roy was startled, looking at the bright smiling face in front of him. His heart seemed to be torn apart by something. Actually I know, the little girl suddenly calmly said. Grandpa said that Dad went a long way. But, the children next door also said that their father also went a long way, but he never came back. Big brother, I will never see Dad again, right? Roy burst into tears, couldn't say anything, just hugged the little girl tightly. Out of the cemetery, Roy couldn't help but look back. Looking at the new tombs all over the mountains. Seeing the two grandparents who are gradually disappearing in the distance, supporting each other and walking away from you, there seems to be something spreading and spreading in his heart, slowly and desolately. No matter in which world, There are people who are gritting their teeth and striding forward in pain. Life is really hard. They never see their dearest person anymore. The ghosts that people fear in the graves are people that others want to see but never see again. This grand but silent funeral just came to an end. In the meaning of life, funeral means the end of life, and it also symbolizes the end of a certain stage. But the aftermath of the war is still firmly shrouded in the huge naval headquarters Marineford like a shadow. After specific statistics, in this war, more than 56,000 pirates were wiped out, and more than 40,000 pirates were captured. But this magnificent victory also meant Marines' terrible casualties. Marine death toll was 30,000, civilian death toll was 120,000, and the number of wounded is countless. The melancholy and sorrowful atmosphere surrounds Marineford, the sanctuary of justice, for a long time. Almost everyone was suffocating a breath in their hearts. All Marines are holding an uncontrollable anger in their hearts. Why? A New World pirate group dared to attack naval headquarters. How dare they? This is naval headquarters. They are just pirates. Nothing like this has ever happened in this sea. Even in the mighty era of One Piece Roger, the several legendary large groups of New World, including Roger, were chased all over the world by Marine. Now it's back, the situation has been reversed. The face and dignity of this Marine don't want it. This is not just the thoughts of Marine soldiers who have lost their comrades and family members in the middle and lower levels. This kind of thought has gradually spread to the highest decision-making level of Marine. Naval Headquarters Marshal S. Mansion, the highest decision-making conference room. A group of Marine high-level officials headed by Marshal Kong gathered together, and the atmosphere of the meeting was full of solemnity and solemnity. Golden Lion made too much noise this time, and the world government has clearly expressed its dissatisfaction with our Marine. Marshal Marine Kong was straightforward, his tone serious. 5 elders threw a question directly to the old man, and the old man was speechless. He slapped his hand on the table violently, and the entire conference room seemed to tremble slightly with the terrifying power. Just let Golden Lion escape from the impelled-down prison. After all, there is no precedent. No one would have thought that the lunatic would cut off his feet cruelly. But the most critical question is why we have not been able to predict the Golden Lion's actions well, and take the initiative to solve him, so as to avoid Naval Headquarters Marineford from falling into such a situation. The old man said this here, not wanting to throw off the pot. After all, the old man, as Marshal Marine, must bear the most important responsibility for this matter. But, Kong said with a blank expression, since the era of the great pirates began, our Marine has tolerated the New World sea area too much. This was the first time everyone saw Marshal Kong showing such a cautious and angry expression. Sengoku pondered for a moment and said, Marshal Sora, so you mean, we must change our military policy on New World and launch an expedition to New World? As soon as this statement came out, other people's eyebrows are tightened subconsciously. New World. That is the sea area known as the Pirate's Cemetery. It's okay to talk about other places, but the New World of this group of heroes is not what Marine enters. Sora shook his head and said, New World is not easy to enter, and large-scale expeditions are even impossible. Whether it is the supply line or the battle line is dragged too long, the fleet is also easily divided. If the action is too large, it will even attract the attention of the Whitebeard guys. If they get together and attack, we will be choked. Everyone couldn't help nodding their heads. Why don't they want to lead their troops on an expedition to New World, and make contributions and accomplishments go down in history? But facts are far more complicated than ideals. It's okay for Marine not to enter the New World. The great pirates of the old age, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, are noisier than anyone else. But once the Marine Corps stepped into New World, the situation was different. How to divide the territory and how to fight is the own matter of their pirates. Marine, who represents justice, is their common enemy. They are very likely to attack and challenge Marine at the same time. Zephyr knocked on the desktop with one hand and said slowly, So the old man, you mean to infiltrate New World on a small scale? A smile finally appeared on Marshal Sora's face. That's right. Only by sending elites to infiltrate New World, collect enough information, and finally find a suitable time, we can officially move towards New World. Who's who? Garp asked, clasping his nostrils. Kong groaned. The candidate is still being finalized, this matter is not in a hurry for the time being. He suddenly turned his head to look at Zephyr. Douglas Bullet, how is that guy? Zephyr Kaido. It is still being held in the prison of our headquarters, and will be transferred to Impel Down within today. Kong frowned. Don't go wrong. This bastard is very strong in both strength and potential. If he is allowed to run away, it is estimated that he will be a golden lion-like character in the future. Zephyr nodded. I will personally escort him, and Magellan will also come to our department to help. Sora rubbed his temples. That's good. In this way, during the escort process, the group of little ghosts you brought to the military academy can be regarded as letting them meet the real fierce pirates before graduation. Graduation? This period of military academy students don't arrange actual combat missions? Sangoku curiously asked. Zephyr laughed. Fart to the actual combat mission. Isn't this just ended war the best actual combat? Everyone laughed when they heard this. Yes. That cruel war has completely grown up the rookies in the military academy. Graduation mission? Escort bullet? When Roy heard the news, he was naturally stunned. Not just him, the other military academies in the classroom also exploded suddenly. Douglas Bullet. That old member of the Roger Pirates. A monster known as the descendant of the devil? So let us escort this group of military academies? This. All the military academies present turned pale with shame, as if they had once again seen the steel giant Chingtian who had set off an endless killing in the civilian area that day. The kind of haughty and murderous spirit that seems to destroy everything. That kind of wanton destruction of all the bloody scenes. Even if the time has passed for so long, it still stays in their minds, long-lasting like the most terrifying nightmare. On the podium, Momoshagi waved his hand to calm the military academies, smiled and said, Yes, but you don't need to worry too much. This time the escort task will be led by Teacher Zephyr himself. In addition, Impel Down will also send a strong person to the headquarters to respond. There will be absolutely no problems. Normally, this is just a process of walking through the scene. The cadets slowly breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. Having experienced the baptism of war, they have indeed grown a lot, both in strength and in their aspirations. The youthfulness and immaturity on each person's face has completely faded, replaced by rare youthful fortitude and bravery. But with their current strength, it is still too early for them to face big pirates like Douglas Bullet. Well, the above is your theory course today. It is also your last course in the military academy. During this time, everyone has achieved very good performance. After that, the headquarters will assign you to positions and departments that suit you based on your overall results during your studies in the military academy and your performance in the war. Momoshagi clapped his hands. Enjoy your next 3 days. This will be the last 3 days of your status as a military academy. Marine's future, the hope of justice, are waiting for you. Finished. Momoshagi Vice Admiral looked solemn and raised his hand to salute the kind of military academy under the podium. This ceremony symbolizes that from this moment on, this group of immature military academies has graduated from the status of students and moved towards their military career. The students all stood up suddenly from their seats, and a group of figures held their heads up and bowed back to Momoshagi Vice Admiral. Get out of class has ended. Roy was packing his own things, and just about to leave the classroom. The others came to him one by one with a smile. Boss, we are discussing whether or not to go to Sabodi Archipelago for a drink and get together to celebrate our graduation. Smoker, who lit his cigar right after class, smiled with white smoke in his mouth. Yeah, Roy, there is nothing to do in the next few days anyway. After graduation, maybe many of us will be sent to major branches. It is estimated that we will not be together again for a long, long time. Hina also looked happy and authentic. Just go. It won't take much time. Huo Xiao Shan said with a simple smile. The others also looked at Roy expectantly. Roy looked at the time and suddenly smiled. Then go. When the voice fell, everyone burst into laughter. Roy goes out. This is an extremely rare thing. To know, they didn't know how many times they had called before, but Roy refused. Roy smiled too. He didn't really want to have fun. To him, it's better to go to the training room or school ground to feel at ease and enjoy the enjoyment that goes out to play. It's just that others are right. After graduation, it is possible for everyone to disperse things, each running for their own future and future. I don't know when we will meet next time. In the army, it's not as easy as it is on the earth. Even if they are thousands of miles apart, you can see you again if you want to. Wars, disasters, and fighting all await them in the future. A good-natured person, I don't know when to say it will be gone. So Roy decided to cherish this opportunity. Let's go, I will treat this party to make up for my sin of letting you pigeons. He smiled. Ha ha ha. Good. Then we have to eat and drink well. You are a rich man. Set off. So this group of freshmen from the military academy handed a leave slip to the administrative department, and took the release slip to board the official ship of the department and set off for Saboti Archipelago. Ride the wind and waves, the faces of the teenagers bloom with youthful light, and they wantonly wave their arms toward the vast and endless sea in front of them. Roy watched the scene of the people on the deck making a fuss and couldn't help showing a gentle smile, and the depression in his heart also faded a lot. In my youth, it should have been this way. Don't worry about any war, justice or death on the battlefield. You can read it by candlelight, can be ridiculous spirits. Whether it's the midnight stars, still sunny. There are long grass warblers in the eyes, she was holding glittering stars in her hands. The young world should be all beautiful things. The official ship of the headquarters is fast, coupled with the good weather, Saboti Archipelago will soon arrive. Stepping onto the land of Saboti Archipelago, Roy opened his eyes slightly to look at the prosperous and beautiful island in front of him, and couldn't help opening his arms and taking a deep breath. It's beautiful, isn't it? This is the most prosperous and affluent area in the first half of the Grand Line. The formation of this archipelago is very peculiar. Near our headquarters, there is the largest mangrove tree in the world, the Alki mangrove. As the roots of the tree remain exposed on the water, the Saboti Archipelago is formed. The roots of the Alki mangroves secrete a special natural resin due to respiration. The resin expands into bubbles due to the air, so it will present this beautiful picture like a fairy tale and wonderland. Hina, who was next to him, took the initiative to act as a tour guide and introduced with a warm smile. She knew that Roy had never been here before, so she briefly explained the characteristics of this Saboti Archipelago to the latter. Roy nodded, smelling the scent of green grass from the mangroves in the air, as if the tight nerves that had been loosened a lot. A group of them walked slowly on the streets full of dazzling commodities, enjoying this rare leisure and relaxation. Suddenly, a loud noise not far away caught their attention. Old man, get out. Tenten came over to buy a steamed bun, and it made Lousy's shop dirty and not rubbish. K off. Lousy won't sell it to you. Everyone was taken aback, and subconsciously strode in that direction. There were already a lot of onlookers who ate melons and smiled whispers. It was a well-decorated restaurant, and a young man in an apron stood at the door yelling at an old man. Your feet are full of mud. Lousy has to wipe it for you when you walk in. As he said, he actually raised his foot and kicked the old man to the ground with a heavy kick. The old man was trembling all over, and said angrily, You don't need to sell it, young people. As for beating people? The youth stared. It's not why you talk so much nonsense. This shop belongs to me. Lousy doesn't want to do your business fair and honest. The old man was taken aback, his face flushed and struggling to stand up, but suddenly he staggered and fell to the ground again. Your uncle's still pretending here. The young man raised his foot again and kicked the old man. Snapped. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his foot with one hand, and when the burly figure leaned against it, it knocked the young man out several meters. Damn it. Who are you? The youth felt sulky in his chest and got up from the ground angrily. But when he saw this group of people that suddenly appeared, he couldn't scold him anymore. It's not a good habit to bully the elderly, right? It was Huo Xiao Shan that shot. His expression changed from his past honesty, his eyes were faintly murderous. The youth was taken aback. Opening a shop in a mixed place like Saboti Archipelago is naturally a little insightful. This group of young people were wearing military uniforms, and it was obvious at a glance that they were not annoying masters. But now so many people around are watching, the young man's face can't be pulled down, his face flushed and said. This old man Tenten came over to me and bought a steamed bun and made the store dirty. How else does Lousy do business? Snapped. The young man was stunned, because another figure suddenly appeared in front of him. A red handprint appeared on his face in the blink of an eye. Apologize. Roy said coldly. Looking at the cold eyes of the marine boy in front of him, the young man felt as if he was being stared at by a fierce tiger, and shivered all over his body. He swallowed, shaking his voice towards the old man. Old man, I'm sorry. The old man waved his hand, just sighed. Roy walked slowly over to support the old man, and then threw a wad of banknotes from Kabuto. I will buy this old man's buns for a month. Isn't this enough money? The youth was stunned. Roy said again meaningfully. Anyone will have an old day. After speaking, he turned straight and left. The others were stunned, and quickly followed. Young man, thank you. The old man looked at their backs and bowed deeply to them. On the way. Roy, why don't you help that old man? Hina asked curiously. The ghost spider also said. The old man is obviously short of money. If you want to do good deeds, why not just give him the money? Roy paused, then slowly said something that made everyone else stunned. The old man is very short of money, but I can't help him. This is the responsibility of the government, not our marine. I can even ask him to eat steamed buns for a lifetime, but I can't save him. Furthermore, an old man who would rather be a plasterer to buy steamed buns to feed himself than beg, do you think he will ask if I give him money? Ask him to eat steamed buns for a month, no problem. But it would be an insult to stuff money directly. Not every old man is as unambitious as Rayleigh, who hasn't eaten enough soft food and even goes to the auction to sell his body. Sabodi Archipelago, a private box in a karaoke hall. There was feasting, and the whole box was filled with strong alcohol. Sitting on the sofa in the box, Roy squatted with a can of beer, and looked at the mole with a microphone in front of him for a personal concert with a twitching corner of his mouth. Black lines appeared on his forehead. The way it was invested, that look, and hideous expression. That red face, and this dancing orchid finger. He couldn't spit out an old groove in his heart. But let's talk about it, this guy still sings pretty well. At least it is the kind of sadness that can only be sung after several wives have died. The mole is like that, don't be too weird. The ghost spider beside him smiled rarely, and drank the remaining half can of beer in his hand. Roy rubbed his forehead helplessly. He didn't expect the mole to be so serious. It would be so interesting after drinking too much. After thinking about it, he turned his head to look at the ghost spider. This guy who always has a refrigerator face, is it the same if he drinks too much? The ghost spider opened another bottle of beer blankly. Don't make my mind. I've never been drunk. Roy stroked his nose. Roy, come. I toast you a drink. Thank you for helping me with cultural lessons these days, so that I can finally pass the exam successfully. Hina, wearing a military uniform, suddenly leaned over at this moment. Her beautiful face was stained with a very beautiful camel red, and her long pink hair was casually draped over her shoulders. Slightly drunk, like a temptation peach. Roy smiled, raised his hand and touched the beer, took a sip and smiled. Hina, you can relax, we will have to perform the task tomorrow. Hina glared silky white, and Roy gave Roy a wink. Before she could speak, the other female classmates next to her joked. She can't wait to take advantage of the chance to drink too much and throw you down tonight. Speaking of Hina, she swooped at the joking girls in shame. The vivid picture caused a burst of dry mouth from the male compatriots. Roy smiled and shook his head. Roy, thank you for taking the shot just now. The figure of Huo Xiaoshan suddenly sat next to Roy, raised the beer in his hand and slammed into Roy's wine can, and said in a deep voice. Roy sipped beer and said softly, I was so impulsive just now, not like your style. Hu Xiaoshan is always a nice guy, and he never takes the initiative to cause trouble, even if others bully him. In most cases he will pass by with a smile. But just in front of the hotel, he was the first to rush out. I don't know if it's because of drunkenness or other reasons. Hu Xiaoshan's eyes were slightly red, he gritted his teeth lightly and said. When I was young, my parents left early, and my grandfather brought them up. It was a bitter life before, so Grandpa had no choice but to let me join the army. Roy raised his hand and patted the man on the shoulder. It's okay, it's all over now, and the good days are coming soon. Huo Xiaoshan shook his head and choked. Not long after I entered the military school, Grandpa left. Roy's hands were stiff in the air, his eyes drooping. I'm fine, and it's fine now, at least I will be able to marry a wife soon. At that time, I will take my daughter-in-law home and ask her to pay respects to Grandpa. Hu Xiaoshan suddenly showed a simple and happy smile on his face. Roy was immediately dumbfounded. Has this Tianhan found a girlfriend? When is it? Huo Xiaoshan smiled rather shyly, his old face blushed. Talking for 2 months. Roy was stunned and asked subconsciously. Is this married? Unexpectedly, Hu Xiaoshan nodded heavily. Well, I only have her in this life. His eyes gradually showed a gentleness that he had never seen before. One day the training session was over. I went to the military academy to make up a file and it was a little late, and I went back to the dormitory late at night. When I was at the door of my house, I saw her standing downstairs in the dormitory with a pot of soup in my hand. She smiled and told me that I just made some soup, thinking about you when I was tired, so I gave it to you. But she doesn't know, I'm actually not stupid. It was snowing that day, and the snow under her feet almost covered her knees. It is estimated that she had been standing there and waiting for me for a long time. The soup was already cold, but I still drank it all in one breath. Huo Xiaoshan took a sip of beer and smiled softly. It's really strange, the soup is very cold, but my heart is warm. I can't tell what it feels like, but if I had a ring in my hand at the time, I would have knelt down on the spot. Roy listened silently, smiling slowly from the corners of his mouth. What a simple and happy story. This may be the original appearance of love. There is no messy reality problem, some only support each other and be extremely gentle. He looked at the Hushao mountain in front of him, and somehow suddenly remembered a sentence in his mind. When one person talks about another person with a smile on his face, there is light in his eyes. Probably this is love to the bone, he toasted. I wish you happiness. When you get married, Laozi will have to ask the old man Zephyr to pull a few warships over and set off a salute. Huo Xiaoshan was taken aback, and immediately clinked glasses with laughter. I also wish you a bright future, when other people see it. Also toasting with a smile, the future is bright. In an instant, the box resounded with the best wishes of this group of young people full of dreams and passion. Yes, graduated, I wish everyone, the future is bright. Be invincible. The future is bright, this may be the boy's best wishes for his future. Roy and the others didn't get drunk at Sabodi Archipelago. They simply chatted with each other about their future and their dreams, just to clean up their hearts and set off. With a slight drunkenness, they boarded the official ship to Marineford in the middle of the night. It's late at night. This group of marine teenagers lit a bonfire on the deck of the warship, singing and dancing, and was full of excitement. Sitting on the edge of the deck mast, Roy carried a bottle of beer in his hand, and looked at the group of friends who had obviously gone crazy with a smile on his face, with a gentle smile on his face. This feeling, to be honest, is really not bad. Don't you go dancing? Hina, with a blushing face, walked slowly over and smiled. It may be due to alcohol, in the light of this volatile campfire. Hina's charming eyes seemed to be filled with moving stars. Roy shook his head. Dancing is not for me. He rested on the railing with one hand, his chin was gently supported with his palm, and he was startled looking at the warm picture in front of him. What about me? Hina suddenly smiled. Roy was taken aback. What about you? Hina's white teeth bit her red lips, as if a little bit ashamed. Roy's dull. I said, am I right for you? The world seems to have stopped at this moment. Roy stared blankly at Hina, who was flushed in front of him but was full of fascination. For a while, he didn't know how to answer. The deck swayed and floated underfoot. In the night sky, the stars filled the sky like a fairy tale. Boys and girls with wine in their hands, looking at each other on the sea, a warm bonfire swaying behind them. Puff. Just kidding. Hina suddenly laughed brilliantly, her moving eyes squeezed towards Roy, showing a narrow smile. Hey, I don't know how you grew up. A Tenten's like a little old man. What are you doing so bitterly and bitterly? She turned around gently, leaning against the railing toward the sea, and squeezing out an extremely exaggerated arc of temptation on the railing from her chest. I'm going to graduate soon. I will probably return to West Blue for a while. Hina said quietly, looking down at the starry sea. Her hometown is West Blue. And you? With your grades and performance, it should be very likely to be placed in the headquarters, right? Roy paused and shook his head. I don't know either. Teacher Zephyr never told me about this. But if possible, I actually want to go to New World. As he said, his eyes slowly revealed a touch of yearning. New World? Hina's eyes widened, as if she couldn't believe it. The second half of the Grand Line, New World. That is the sea area that marine forces dare not enter casually. Yeah, I finally got here. If I don't go to that sea area, I guess I will regret it for the rest of my life. Roy laughed wanton and took a sip of wine. When the voice fell, his eyes slowly looked far away. The moonlight and silver light spread out in front of the sea, and there was a dark sea with no end in sight. He has made up his mind. My own journey will start again. It was at this moment that his destination was vividly visible. New World, where is the stage for the heroes to fight for hegemony? Now that you have decided, then we estimate that there will be very few opportunities to see you again in the future. Hina quietly looked at Roy's mature, water-chestnut face, and looked at the latter's piercing eyes with a lonely smile. Then, the future Marine Admiral Roy, will you dance with Hina on the cheek? Roy was stunned. I will not. It's okay. Hina raised her head and drank the wine in her hand, already holding Roy's hand. I teach you. A soft and coquettish voice rang in my ears. The tall silhouettes of the two moved slowly, following the rhythm of the dance music, toward the campfire. When the other military academies saw this scene, they all smiled and spontaneously gave way to a small open space. The moonlight is sky, the sea breeze is arbitrary. One after another, the stars pierced bright spots in the night sky, shining in the long river. By the campfire, a handsome and calm boy. A beautiful girl, fluttering and dancing. The boy's movements are full of green and blunt. The girl's expression was intoxicated and lonely. The two depended gently on each other, make up an intoxicating and beautiful picture. Roy. Actually I like you very much. I know. Can't you accept me? It's just me. Maybe it's not the one that suits you best, I'm probably just a passerby. Roy. Do you like me? To tell you the truth, you look so good, if you say you don't like it, that's a fake. That's fine. The girl suddenly smiled playfully, stood on tiptoe, kissed the boy lightly on the cheek, and then rushed into the cabin. Roy stood there alone, touched his cheek with his palm subconsciously, and smiled. The end of the song, but people are not necessarily scattered. At least, this moment is extremely beautiful. This is a short moment in the life of a young man. Take the risk and refuse to accept anyone. It's time to sing praises, it's time to entertain seriously. What can I do if I fail? How does it end? I'll talk about that kind of thing later. This age. Feng Yue looks good on towels, love and hate are romantic. When Roy and the others returned to Marineford, the starlight of the night sky in the east had gradually drooped, and a pale light appeared on the edge of the sky. Roy. What do you think? Still thinking about the kiss just now. After landing, Smoker came over and bit his cigar and joked with Roy. Roy stroked his nose awkwardly. He also didn't expect that the little girl Hina would be so crazy and brave, and he would come to him in full view. This bold move made Roy feel dark in his heart, and he also had a lot of affection for the little girl Hina. But as a traveler from an unfamiliar world, can he really shoulder the expectations of a girl like Hina? Roy was actually a little worried. The journey was very sudden. To be honest, he didn't know when he disappeared in this world and crossed back to Earth. Roy asked herself, although there is nothing too extraordinary, but she can't delay others' lives because of her own impulse? You are too gentle. Smoker looked at Roy, who was silent, and suddenly smiled. This guy is only 10 years old, but he is old-fashioned in his speech. Fortunately, he learned how to smoke a cigar from Zephyr. Roy smiled bitterly and shook his head. Like ours, there is no meal and no meal, maybe it will be lost in any war anytime. The tombstones of Marineford Cemetery, and the old and the young holding hands in the wind and snow again appeared in his mind. Something seemed to be slightly blocked in his heart. The shadow of war is not just the grief of losing your comrades in arms, but the aftershocks that will affect your lifelong choices. Smoker paused, then smiled and patted Roy on the shoulder. What's next, who knows? Don't think too much. Next we will all go back to the dormitory to rest, how about you? Roy looked at him, then looked at the others, and smiled. You go. I'm going to relax the alcohol. Marineford Military Academy. General Instructor Office. I heard that those little bunnies all went to the Saboti Archipelago party? Zephyr slowly put down the documents in his hand, lit a cigar and asked Momoshagi who was aside. During this period, the post-war reconstruction of the military academy was in full swing, and Momoshagi, the chief in charge, also often stationed in the military academy to help. Momoshagi also put down the files in his hand, rubbed his temples tiredly, and smiled. I heard that yes, the approval note from the administration department was also brought over here for the record. Zephyr nodded and said, that's good too. Roy's boy has never been in a good mood after the war. The old man can feel his nerves tense all the time. It's good to relax occasionally. Momoshagi also secretly agreed. Roy forced himself too hard. No matter what it was, everyone else felt like walking a tightrope. Ms. Zephyr, shall I pour you a cup of coffee? You didn't sleep all night. Momoshagi stood up from his seat and said softly. Zephyr laughed. All right, this cigar is no lungs, so it doesn't feel refreshing. As he said that, he stood up, stretched his waist greatly, and walked slowly to the window to take in some fresh air. But when he first walked to the window, his old face became so wonderful that he was immediately stunned. A young figure is running hard on the school field in the early morning. It was sweating like rain, and the temperature of transpiration caused white mist to appear in the cold air. This scene made Zephyr's eyes suddenly trance. Remember that night, that morning when I first discovered this kid? Isn't he the same? Zephyr thought so, and Jonin couldn't help but smile. What a crazy self-discipline. Momosagi, who was holding twice the steaming coffee in his hand, smiled wryly. Zephyr took the coffee from Momosagi, squinted and smiled. Some habits can't be changed. Zephyr's words suddenly couldn't go on. His mouth opened slightly and his eyes widened. Momosagi, who looked out the window, was also stunned. Immediately both of them couldn't help laughing. On the school field, 1, 2, 3. One after another, the military academy students appeared on the school field without knowing when, and followed the young man in the front without a word. Start running. On the sky, that ray of light got higher and higher, and finally covered the entire sky. In the morning sun, the vitality exuded by hundreds of military academies training is like a dancing dragon, roaring wantonly on the school field. The cold night and wind cannot stop their footsteps. They continued to move forward under the blazing flames. In the school field, Roy, who was squatting his head to train his physical endurance, suddenly stopped. He turned back subconsciously, but they saw Smoker, Ghost Spider and others who were supposed to go back to sleep gradually entering the school grounds and training with them. How do you know I am here? Everyone couldn't help but smile and said. Who doesn't know you are here? Yeah, can't we lag you too much? At least, if the next war, we don't want to follow your ass anymore. I want to stand by your side and fight with you. As everyone said, they looked at Roy firmly. That back figure, before I knew it, I was getting farther and farther away from myself. Roy. Although my strength is still far short. But I will become stronger and stronger. I hope that one day, I can really become a comrade in arms to help you. All of them thought this way. The early morning passed, the sun was shining brightly. After finishing the training, Roy and others all quickly returned to their dormitory, and after a simple 1-hour sleep, they washed up and came to the port of Marineford headquarters to gather. Yesterday's madness and jokes are completely gone. Their faces were replaced by solemnity and solemnity. Because today is the day for them to perform their graduation mission to escort the big pirate Douglas Bullet back to the impelled-down deep-sea prison. There was silence in the military phalanx, and all the military academies stood on the ground holding their breath, waiting in full battle. But for a moment, the burly figure of Zephyr also appeared on the military port. His eyes quickly glanced at the young but no longer immature faces in front of him, and a flash of appreciation flashed in his heart. After experiencing the baptism of war, this group of young little ghosts has completely transformed into a group of outstanding soldiers. There is no way to hide the difference between the life and death that has been experienced, and the life and death that has not been experienced. Bring the prisoner up. Zephyr didn't nag, just waved his hand solemnly. Not far away, the heavy door of a passage leading to the underground prison slowly opened, and then the sound of harsh metal shackles dragging the ground came from a distance in the dark passage. Heavy footsteps followed, and a gust of horror and blood rushed out of the passage suddenly, rushing towards Roy and the others. Washed by this cold wind filled with boundless killing aura, everyone couldn't help their faces turning pale, and even the weaker ones had their teeth chattering. Roy's face was fairly relaxed, but he frowned frequently. This level of murderousness is simply incredible. Bullet. How many people's blood has been tainted in his hands, and how many innocent civilian lives have been slaughtered? Calm down. Stick up for the old man. Don't be overwhelmed by his aura. Zephyr drank in a low voice, and his muffled voice exploded in everyone's minds. Everyone was shocked when they heard this, and they all gritted their teeth and straightened their bodies. Tisk tusk tusk. Zephyr, you let this group of little ghosts escort me to impel down. Do you look down on me too much, Douglas Bullet? At this moment, the burly figure in the passage suddenly issued a hoarse grin, and the figure in the dark gradually became clear. The black military uniform has been ruined in previous battles, and the golden ponytail is tied to the scalp with a dark red bloodline. His face was haggard, stained with stubborn blood, he looked like a devil crawling out of hell. Coming. Descendants of the devil, the old crew of Roger, One Piece, killing countless people, Douglas Bullet. Zephyr frowned upon hearing Bullet's mocking grin, and said coldly. Bullet, don't forget where it is. If you are not convinced, the old man can break your legs at any time. Bullet was taken aback, and then suddenly burst into a frantic laughter. His expression was distorted, and the pupils of his eyes were covered with hideous bloodshot eyes. Zephyr. If there is a kind of thing, you would kill me. Ha 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 ha. But you dare not. No, no one in your marine dare to kill me. Isn't it? He opened his arms bound by the seastone handcuffs, and a majestic aura burst out of his body. Boom. The invisible and terrifying airwaves spurted out suddenly, spreading out in all directions with Bullet as the center. Behind him, the Marine soldiers who escorted him out of the prison trembled all over, as if their souls had been hit by some shock. Their eyes and mouth foamed and fell straight to the ground. On the other side, Roy and the military academy students' expressions also changed drastically. There seemed to be stumbling waves in the crowd square, and their footsteps retreated one after another. Their faces turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye, and they couldn't help clenching their teeth. Conqueror's Haki. Still very strong Conqueror's Haki. The military academy students present are naturally not newcomers. They have naturally heard this legendary ability from various channels. The innate and powerful spirit, proof of the King's qualifications. Only one person in a million will have the superpower. Ha 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 ha. Did you see Zephyr? This group of trash students under yours, even Lousy's Haki can't bear it. Bullet grinned frantically. Zephyr's face suddenly became difficult to look. Suddenly, Poison Dragon. Huh. A huge purple-black dragon suddenly flew up from the rear of the crowd, and in the blink of an eye, the whole body of Bullet, who was laughing brazenly and grinning, was overwhelmed. Ah. Damn. This is poison. Bullet fell into the purple-black venom, convulsing weakly and wailing. Sorry. There was a storm on the road and it was delayed, Teacher Zephyr. A huge black figure suddenly appeared in front of the crowd, bending over towards Zephyr respectfully. This poison. So strong. This person. It turned out to be a second-in-one-move Douglas Bullet. The scene before him really shocked many people present, and the faces of the military academies were full of daunting. They stared stunnedly at the nearby Bullet, who was twitching in the purple-black venom swamp, tumbling and roaring in pain, and a thought came up in their hearts. This is too fierce. Then, their gazes were all involuntarily at the big man who respectfully saluted Teacher Zephyr. Black goat horns with slightly curved and sharp tips. Wearing a black uniform trench coat from the impel-down Great Prison. There is a pair of huge black demon wings behind. The flag is unique and gloomy, but his looks are quite simple and honest. Magellan. Impel Down, the deputy director of the Great Deep Sea Prison, a direct disciple of Black Arm Zephyr, is recognized as the strongest man in prison. Roy's eyes gleamed. At this moment Magellan is still very young, in his 20s, close to 30, but this strength has at least reached the level of Marine Admiral. Just the one-handed Poison Dragon he had just now does not talk about martial ethics. It seems that there is already a bit of ferocity of the Blackbeard group in the late stage of the story. Well, it's good to be here. This guy is very troublesome. Although he has Seastone, the role of Seastone is not too obvious for a strong man of his level. Zephyr looked at Magellan in front of him with admiration, waved his hand and smiled. Magellan is one of his most outstanding students, and his talent is comparable to a monster level. Of course, what Zephyr appreciates most is not Magellan's strength, but his character. He is very different from the three of Sakazuki, Kuzan and Peluzalino. He has a strong sense of responsibility and is good at carrying out orders to the end. At the same time, he has sympathy for the weak. It's just that Magellan lacks a clear leadership temperament and leadership, and is not suitable for being an officer in the marine system, so the military department arranged him to serve in Impelton, the deep sea prison. Impel Down Deep Sea Prison, along with Naval Headquarters, Eni's Lobby, said to represent the three holy places of justice. Island that never sleeps, Eni's Lobby represents judicial power, Naval Headquarters has strong law enforcement power, and Impel Down means the ultimate punishment, and its importance is self-evident. Certainly, Magellan lived up to expectations and proved himself. His horrible power of poisonous fruit can cause a significant threat to many powerful pirates in Impel Down. For Douglas Bullet, a monster that is highly developed in both devil fruit and its own body, Seastone alone is not enough. The scene just now explained everything. Bullet, who was imprisoned by Seastone handcuffs, still possesses not-so-weak mobility, and can even burst out of Haki. At this time, Magellan's poisonous fruit effect is quite clear. Magellan nodded and glanced at Roy behind Zephyr subconsciously. He has been admiring Roy's name for a long time, and the latter is a new student of Teacher Zephyr, which makes him curious. Roy saw Magellan's gaze, smiled and nodded. Magellan also nodded slightly. There are stars in every term of the military academy. Akainu and Kizaru in the first issue, Magellan in the second issue. The third issue of Aokiji, Momoshagi and Cha Dolphin in the fourth issue. Until now, Roy. To a certain extent, this is also a kind of inheritance and recognition. Zephyr turned around and introduced to the freshman with a smile. I believe everyone has guessed the identity of this person, Magellan, the deputy director of Impel Down, one of your best seniors. He is the second graduate of the military academy. The cadets bowed together. Good Senior Magellan. Magellan smiled honestly. Hello everyone. Remind me, don't get too close to me if it's okay, otherwise my ability will cause trouble for everyone. After speaking, Magellan whispered towards Zephyr with an embarrassed face. Ms. Zephyr. Zephyr was dumbfounded. That problem hasn't been solved yet? Magellan nodded in distress. Zephyr smiled helplessly and waved his hand. Go ahead. Speaking, Magellan covered her belly and stepped strangely and quickly boarded the warship. But for a while, a burst of low banging fart sounds came from the depths of the warship, causing everyone to appear a black line. Magellan's poisonous fruit ability is still the same as in the legend. Every time it runs out, it will cause diarrhea. Seeing this scene, the faces of the military academies were panicked, and they looked like they wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh. Well, you guys hurry up and cheer up. Don't think about messy things. Zephyr said loudly. Saying that he gave an order to a private soldier, a few Marine soldiers in protective suits stepped off the warship and dragged Bullet, who was convulsing and bursting with purple smoke, from the ground onto the warship. Impel Down, let's go. The warship sailed quickly and steadily on the sea. Is this the Triangle Ocean Current? It's spectacular. There isn't even a boat on the road. A group of military academies stood on the deck, looking at the unobstructed route in front of them, feeling the comfort of the cool sea breeze, and sighed. The Triangular Ocean Current is a dedicated route for world government and marine. Riding on this ocean current, you can quickly travel back and forth between Eni's lobby, marine headquarters and Impel Down deep sea prison. This is like a triangle-like route with a gate similar to a flood discharge device, which is branded with the logos of world government and marine, and is also known as the Gate of Justice. When one of the 3 doors of justice is opened, the ocean current will flow into the door, and the ship will follow the ocean current to its destination. When the 3 doors of justice are closed at the same time, the triangular ocean current will continue to circulate, and the ships in it will continue to circle along the ocean current. On the other end of the deck, Roy was called by Zephyr. Buddy, graduation is coming soon. During this time, the military academy's reconstruction work is too busy, and the old man has no time to talk about this with you. Zephyr was not polite, and smiled straight to the door. Roy smiled disapprovingly. Old man, I am not a kid who hasn't grown up. Anyway, the military department will arrange it whatever the time comes. Zephyr winked his eyes and said, You don't have any thoughts in your heart? Roy shrugged and said frankly, That is of course, if possible, I hope to go to New World. Zephyr was taken aback, and looked at Roy deeply. New World? Do you know what kind of sea it is? Roy nodded. The cemetery of the pirates are entrenched. Even if the marine forces are difficult to enter, it can be said that it is a road of 9 deaths. Zephyr frowned. Then you still want to go? Roy thought about it a little bit. Old man, I thought about it. It's not enough to stay in the headquarters. Our marine has been too quiet these years, that in fact, the strongest period of marine was in Roger's era. Now a marine's strongest combat power grew up in the most dangerous sea area of New World in that turbulent era. If I stay at naval headquarters, even if the high officials are generous, nothing will change. While saying this, Chunin couldn't help thinking of scenes from the war in the cemetery in Roy's mind, as well as the meaningful words that Aokiji whispered in his ear. Only by becoming stronger can you protect what you want to protect. Without sufficient strength, it is meaningless to say anything. The old man in front of him was indeed very good to him, but he could not protect himself forever. The most important is, familiar with the plot, he clearly knows how bleak the final outcome of this bad old man over 100 years old is. The 3 most outstanding students ever, an order. A hands-on, one to build a grave, the arrangement is a proper and persuasive one. Roy is a person who knows how to be grateful. Everything Zephyr paid for him, he saw it in his eyes and remembered it in his heart. This old man who devoted his life to justice and marine. This is to protect the peace and the world's weak marine admiral. In any case, it cannot and should not end in that way. Typing was originally appointed by the general, and the general should also see typing. This is fair, isn't it? A person like me can really catch up to those monsters only by constantly fighting, only by constantly struggling on the edge of life and death. Roy said sternly. Even stronger than those 3 monsters. Of course, he did not say the last sentence. Zephyr fell silent upon hearing this. He knew that Roy was right. Even the three of Akainu, Aokiji and Kizaru did not grow into the current monsters, just by staying at naval headquarters and punching in. They followed themselves and Sengoku and Garp in the New World campaign many years ago. Even the sloppy bastard of Paluzolino faced the world-famous pirates such as Roger, Golden Lion and Whitebeard, flinched. They have also experienced countless cruel battles, and they have grown to this level today. The young eagle, after all, jumps off the cliff and faces death bravely, so that it can soar in the air and spread its wings. However, now Marines control over New World. Zephyr thought about it. I think about this matter. Before that, are you ready? He suddenly smiled mysteriously at Roy. Roy was taken aback by Zephyr's bad old man's bad expression. What are you ready? Zephyr laughed. When this escort mission is over and returned to the headquarters, the military academy will hold a formal graduation ceremony. At that time, Marineford's military merits in the defense battle will be counted. But this is not what the old man wants to say. What the old man wants to say is that in each term of the military academy graduates, a representative of outstanding graduates will be selected to speak publicly. Needless to say, you are well deserved, so you have to be prepared for this speech. This time, I will not only face the military academy students of the headquarters, but will also broadcast it in real time in the headquarters and the major marine branches throughout the world. The old man is not very demanding. It's about the same level as your previous paper. When the voice fell, Roy was immediately dumbfounded. Not demanding. Is it okay to be about the same level as the previous paper? Old man, are you sure you were teasing me? Do you think my writing skills are really so strong? That's what the system helped me write word by word. Roy sighed helplessly, but he couldn't explain it. Boy, you can play well when the time comes, so that the messy guys in the military and other branches can build up confidence. Zephyr shook his head and patted Roy's shoulder earnestly. Roy smiled bitterly. Old man, you look down on me too much, right? This is nothing more than a speech from a graduate, and it is not the highest order of martial marine. Zephyr seemed to remember something suddenly, his expression grinning. He looked very funny. That's because you don't know the status of the outstanding representatives of the previous graduates. Speaking of Zephyr, he was a stubborn look who had eaten flies alive. Roy suddenly became curious. How were the previous issues? Zephyr suddenly took a sneaky look around, and after making sure that there was no one, he sneaked out a military videophone worm from his arms. Roy also saw sharply that the military phone bug had the words, "Top Secret," written on it in a red seal. Anyway, just look at it. Just don't tell others, or even the old man won't be able to eat. Kabuto walks away, and I'll be annoyed by Tenten. Zephyr did not teach authentically, and opened the military videophone worm as he said it. Huh. A picture suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. At the front entrance of the military academy's teaching building, a crowd was crowded, and a banner hung behind the crowd. Marine College's first freshman graduation ceremony. Roy was taken aback for a moment, and Zindao actually recorded a video. Seeing the quality of this photo, the number of frames is a bit low. He could even see Zephyr, who was a little younger than he is now, standing in the front of the crowd vigorously. Sakazuki and Paluzolino, outstanding representatives of graduates, are invited to express their thoughts. A loud voice came from the phone worm. Then the two tall figures in the picture slowly stepped onto the high platform. Roy's face suddenly became very exciting, and Zephyr's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. I saw the young version of Akainu, wearing red beach short sleeves and shaved head, walking slowly onto the stage. After looking at the crowd below, he held the microphone and said in a deep voice, "I have nothing to say. The mission of a soldier is to obey orders. If anyone dares to disobey my order in the future, kill. If anyone dares to shrink back on the battlefield, kill. Whether any pirate appears in front of me, kill." After speaking, he dropped the microphone and walked away. Roy. Zephyr. This is too stupid. But this is endless. Next moment, Kizaru also stepped onto the high platform. Roy's expression immediately became embarrassing. Good guy. He also wore shorts, showing thick leg hair, and stepped on a pair of flip-flops. Zephyr's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. In the picture, Kizaru looked at the crowd hippily, grinning. It's terrible. A lot of people. Have you eaten? I haven't eaten yet. In Roy's brain, 10,000 grassy mudhorses galloped past, his brain buzzing. The screen flashed, the second graduation ceremony. In the same position, Magellan was wearing a black protective suit and even a gas mask. Magellan couldn't see what she looked like, clutching her belly and rushing to the podium. My stomach hurts a little bit. Puff. A thunderous fart exploded in the image, and Magellan disappeared. Roy was dumbfounded. Then came the third graduation ceremony. The third outstanding representatives of graduates, please come to the stage to speak. Nobody. Well, after a long time there was no one. Is this picture still? Roy stared blankly at the empty scene, and asked. Zephyr sighed. No, Kuzan didn't go to the graduation ceremony at all, he overslept in the dormitory. Roy was speechless. Now you understand? He put away the videophone worm with a weeping face, and suddenly jumped and scolded his mother. This group of bastards, one by one, it's like crooked melons and dates. The old man's face is lost to them. Every time I go out, the old man is embarrassed to tell others that they are his students. Too embarrassing to TM. On such a serious occasion as the graduation ceremony, they are as good as their own playhouse. He suddenly squeezed Roy's shoulders with both hands, his eyes flushed. Roy, please. This time, you will give the old man a sigh of relief anyway. Play well. As if afraid that Roy was under too much pressure, Zephyr thought for a while and added another begging. Even if you play abnormally, it's okay. Anyway, no matter what you do, your image will crush them, a few bastards. Being handsome is so amazing.